I used to joke that our mornings were choreographed chaos. You know, like synchronized swimming but with cereal bowls, missing socks, and a school bell as the final buzzer. My wife, Elena, always managed the chaos like a conductor. She'd pack lunches, shout reminders, and kiss the kids goodbye while I hunted for my keys like they were buried treasure. We had 2 kids, Emma and Noah, bright, noisy, the center of our world. They took the bus to school, and that bus, for the last 2 years, had been driven by a guy named Carl. Nothing remarkable about him at first glance, mid-40s, mustache, always in a neon vest and scuffed boots. He waved when he pulled up, smiled when the kids climbed on. Just Carl the bus driver. Nothing more. I'm Michael, by the way. 41, IT guy, probably too ordinary to be anything more than background noise in someone else's drama. At least, that's how I felt lately, like a lamp someone only notices when it flickers or breaks. The thing is, Elena had changed. Not in any sudden, dramatic way. Just little things that stacked up like unwashed dishes in the sink. She'd started wearing makeup again in the mornings, even though she worked from home. She took longer walks after the kids left, said she was clearing her head, but sometimes she'd come back with her hair windblown and a look on her face I couldn't read. One morning, I stayed homesick, a rare event. I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the kids run to the bus. Carl stepped down, helped Noah tie a shoe, and then Elena laughed. That soft, breathy laugh she used to reserve for flirty moments with me. She touched his arm. It could have been nothing. A friendly exchange. But the way they looked at each other lingered. Like 2 actors who forgot the scene was over. I didn't say anything that day. Or the next. But I started noticing things. Her phone, once carelessly tossed onto counters, was always face down now. She'd go out for milk and take 40 minutes. I checked the fridge, plenty of milk. I'm not proud of what I did next. But suspicion is a sharp, quiet thing. I installed a small tracking app on her phone while she was in the shower. It was simple, undetectable. The kind of thing a guy in IT could do blindfolded. I hated myself for doing it. But I hated the not knowing more. The next few mornings, I tracked her route. Every day at 7:45 a.m., after the kids got on the bus, her dot hovered near the corner of Meadowbrook and 5th. A cul-de-sac. Nothing there except old brick houses and an empty lot. Except Carl lives there. I remembered because he mentioned it once at a PTA event. The dots didn't lie. And neither did my gut. On the 5th morning, I followed her. Drove the long way to avoid suspicion. Parked 3 houses down from Carl's place. At exactly 8:03 a.m., she walked up his driveway. She didn't knock. She used a key. I sat there in my car, knuckles white around the steering wheel, stomach hollow. They stayed inside for 47 minutes. I know because I watched the app tick every minute like a countdown. She came out with her hair up in a messy bun, her cheeks flushed, a bottle of water in hand. I went to work that day like nothing happened. But something had changed in me. A wire had snapped. Not out of anger, at least, not yet. It was more like grief. The kind of grief you can't share because it makes you feel foolish for ever believing in something. That night, as she made dinner, I looked at her and wondered who she really was. The woman who once cried during wedding vows? Or the one who shared coffee with a bus driver every morning while I kissed her goodbye? Part of me wanted to confront her, scream, demand the truth. But another part, the colder, calculating part, wanted to wait. Watch. Gather everything. Because this wasn't just betrayal. It was war. I don't know what kind of man I became in those days. There's something about betrayal that cracks your identity wide open, and in the ruins, you find someone different staring back at you. I used to be a guy who looked for the good in people. I didn't anymore. The kids still got on the bus every morning. Still waved to Carl. I watched from the front window like a ghost in my own house. Elena would walk back inside like she hadn't just handed my heart off to another man behind a windshield. She didn't know I knew. And that was the only thing that gave me a sliver of control. I hired a private investigator, a guy named Ray who had the subtlety of a house cat and the instincts of a bloodhound. Within 2 days, he had photos. Elena stepping into Carl's house. Carl opening the door in a robe. Her leaving hours later with hair tousled and makeup faded. One day, she didn't come home until lunch. Told me she was stuck in a long call with her editor. Her editor, I thought bitterly, must be awfully hands-on. I was careful not to act different. I still kissed her on the cheek. Still asked about her day. She gave me lies wrapped in smiles, and I took each one like a punch to the gut. But every moment was a step closer to the finale I was quietly preparing. Then one night, I found her journal. She'd left it out by accident, probably too smug in her secrecy to remember I still lived here. The first few entries were harmless. Grocery lists. Quotes. Then I saw Carl's name. He's so different from Michael. Simple. Easy. Real. I don't think I've ever been angrier than I was reading that line. Like I was some corporate robot, a background character in her little love story. She spoke about the rush of sneaking around, how alive it made her feel. She said Carl made her feel seen. I'd been her husband for 8 years, father to her children, her shoulder in the darkest moments. But a man who pressed a gas pedal for a living made her feel seen. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't ask why. The next morning, I kissed my kids goodbye, but instead of going to work, I followed the bus. I kept my distance, watched it stop at corners and collect innocent little lives. Watched Elena, standing on the sidewalk, waving and smiling. She didn't know I was there. Watching. She didn't know I'd already filed the divorce papers. 2 weeks later, I planned it all on a Wednesday. The kids were staying with my sister for the night. I made it seem spontaneous, told Elena I thought she could use a little me time, that I'd take the kids to see their cousins. She smiled, grateful. The next morning, I left for work. Except I didn't go far. I parked around the block, phone in hand, tracking app loaded, camera ready. At 8:02 a.m., she entered Carl's house again. This time, I walked up. I didn't ring the doorbell. I let myself in. They didn't hear me at first. I walked through the hall, past a pile of her shoes, my wife's shoes. And there they were. Not even upstairs. Just on the couch. Her legs wrapped around him like she hadn't just promised forever to someone else. "Good morning," I said, voice ice. They scrambled like kids caught stealing candy. Elena's face went pale, and Carl reached for his pants like it would fix things. "I was going to tell you," she started, eyes already tearing. "Don't bother," I cut her off, calm but burning. "You made your choice. Now you live with it." I dropped a manila folder on the coffee table. Inside photos, location logs, timestamps. Divorce papers, too. You thought you were sneaky. You weren't. Carl tried to say something, but I stared him down. You drive a school bus, Carl. You deliver my children to school. And then you sleep with their mother. If there's a hell specific to that, I hope you find it. I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't scream. That would have given them too much dignity. At home, I packed her things into boxes and left them by the garage. I changed the locks. Called her later and told her she could pick them up, but only when I wasn't there. She cried, of course. Said she didn't want to lose the family. Said it was a mistake. Said I was still the best man she'd ever known. But even the best man can break. The divorce was quiet but final. I got full custody. The court agreed that stability was crucial, especially since she'd been so distracted. Carl lost his job shortly after. Something about a moral clause, or maybe just karma with a clipboard. I see Elena sometimes when she picks the kids up. She doesn't smile like she used to. And Carl? He's just a footnote now. Someone my kids don't remember, Someone who lived a few chapters in a story they'll never read again. As for me, I survived. No, more than that. I rediscovered myself in the wreckage. Not as the quiet husband in the background, but as a man who saw the truth, faced it, and walked away with his head held high. Because sometimes, the greatest love story is the one where you choose yourself.